The Nintendo 64 was an instant classic in Nintendo's console library. 3D graphics from the big end wowed us all at the time, even if other systems had a lot more processing power. So it's no surprise that despite Psygnosis being owned by Sony, the Destruction Derby license holders wanted a piece of that 64-bit pie. Looking Glass Studios was given the blessing after fantastic releases such as System Shocks 1 and 2, Thief, and their Command & Conquer 64 port. THQ stepped into the picture to publish what we now know as Destruction Derby 64.
Welcome to Destruction Derby!
Having been 3 years since the last Destruction Derby game, you can imagine the intrigue of having the title appear on a Nintendo platform. I mean, after all, we had seen DMA's hard work on Body Harvest essentially trashed and reworked. But also we had got the Twisted Metal homage Vigilante 8 in all its full glory. But let's not worry about what we thought back at the time, let's take it for what it is at face value today. The first thing you notice, the graphics are big, bright and colourful. The menus are clear and vibrant, all with that little grunge motif Destruction Derby is synonymous with. In-game, the low-poly cars pop from the tracks, which themselves are varied and bright, even those ones that are set at night. The shadows and lighting, whilst primitive by today's standards, are pleasing and really not overbearing. And what was probably a huge relief for a lot of people at the time, we had up to 13 cars on screen at any time, smashing paintwork off, sparking up the sidewalls and generally causing mayhem. Well, so far so good. It seems to be carrying on the legacy of the original Destruction Derby on the PS1. But then as you play the game, you start to see things a little closer. And you can see just how low res all of the textures are. The cars are suffering from a severe lack of personality, which was much the same as Destruction Derby 2, but the pixelated paintwork really puts me off. The backgrounds themselves are full of blocky and repetitive textures, and a lot of the elements floating in the background are just 2D sprites with a black outline, which by themselves in the distance are actually quite effective. But because they're brought right up close to the player at certain times, you can see just how bad and pixelated these are. The tracks, while they're big and bright, that is half the problem. They're just too big and long circuits with no real personality to them. Yeah, okay, that was similar to Destruction Derby 2. Besides the odd bit of scenery here and there, all the tracks feel pretty homogenised. The sort of thing I've seen in every single racing game I've ever played previously. As for the audio of the game, it doesn't fare much better. Collisions and explosions are fine, but all too often there are too many happening at the same time, and it just goes silent as the processor gets overloaded. The engine noise sounds a bit off as well, and it's not too bad. But couple that with the completely forgettable music, you end up just playing with noise. However, these negatives probably could be forgiven. It was the N64. Memory was sparse, and because it was cartridge-based gaming, the load times were practically nil. Plus you compare it to its contemporaries of the time, Cruisin' USA and San Francisco Rush, it looked just as good. Okay, a few step downs here and there, but there's a lot more going on under the hood in this game than was in those. And anyway, like I've said before, what does it matter if it doesn't look or sound as good as the PS1? What matters is how it plays. And yeah, okay, we might have a few more problems yet to come. What I will say first off though is the game controls great, and I cannot argue with that. You've got your A button to accelerate, your B to brake, your right trigger to handbrake, and the analog stick to steer. No problem at all, feels responsive, feels fluid. On the one track with snow, you lose traction, skid around the entire place. That makes it feel fantastically real yet arcadey. with that lovely balance I do so love. The way this driving engine is implemented, however, makes me feel this was meant to be, I don't know, a Ridge Racer rather than a Destruction Derby game. The vast majority of the single player is much the same thing. You are racing against the clock, checkpoint to checkpoint. What this game does have to make it stand out is that you have to crash into opponents to score points. Okay, fine, much the same as the previous games. However, these seem to be awarded more or less at random. Something else it's got going for it is that at least half the cars are driving the other way around the track. So you're always guaranteed to be driving headlong into another car to score points. Until of course you're down to that one other car that's still driving the same direction as you, and you're always on the opposite side of the track to him. Rather annoying. Alternatively, there is the option to gain points by being a good driver, but there is no lap system to this game. There's no points position for being in first, there's simply a bunch of points awarded for every checkpoint you clear. So essentially, you absolutely have to attack head on in order to win this game, making the checkpoint system essentially worthless anyway. So considering the main aim of this game is to crash into and cause as much destruction as possible on your opponent's cars, you'd think it would be a little more nuanced than what it is. In previous titles, you were given extra points for spinning a car out, toppling it over, and destroying it of course. Here though, you just hit and hope. I can't tell what's going to award me 1 point, 2 points, 10 points, 40 points. I can't get my head round it. This, however, is balanced by the fact that the AI in this game is as smart as a bag of rocks. The previous entries had individual AI and caused the drivers to react in different ways. Here, if that's the case, it seems to be all of them have had lobotomies and all seem to be driving into the wall half the time. Moving on from all of that, let's take a look at the staple of the Destruction Derby series, and that's the car damage. In this game, it's been massively simplified. You get a meter in the corner over the outline of your car. If that meter runs out, your car explodes. Yeah, okay, you still get the stages of destruction. You bust your radiator, the steam comes out. You start getting the black smoke just before your car is crippled. And the car models will crumple and buckle to give a reasonable visual feedback of how badly someone's doing. But the fact is that crumpling is purely cosmetic. Previously you'd have to be worried about what end of your car is getting more damage, the left, the right, the front, the rear. And then of course you had the strategy of, oh god, if I take one more hit to the front, I'm going to blow up, I'm going to slam it in reverse. Here, it doesn't matter. It goes back to my previous point. You're just hitting and hoping. There's no strategy involved at all. It's at this point I sort of think to myself, maybe it's wrong for me to judge this against the previous Destruction Derby games. This was not designed by the original developers, and perhaps I should take it on its own merit. Which, for what it is, it's an alright game. It's not too terrible, but it's not going to win any awards. Moving on to the different modes and the longevity of this game, there's not a lot really here. You've got a short championship mode, usually works 2 races. You've got your Destruction Derby, all out fight to the death, followed by another couple of races. And they repeat these tracks ad nauseum. You've got the arcade for one-off races, which, considering my disdain for the actual racing mechanics, essentially made it pointless. You've also got the time trials, which, okay, you can get to learn the layout of the tracks, but offer nothing more than that. Finally, you get to what is unequivocally the best thing about Destruction Derby 64, and that is the multiplayer. You have 4-player split-screen death matches, all natively built into the system, no extra adapters needed. If you've just got 2 players, you can do the normal racing, but really honestly, it's hardly worth the time and effort. Instead, you've got the death matches, which are incredible multiplayer, or instead you can try the other games they've got here, Capture the Flag or Bomb Tag. Both of these modes turn off car damage, but give completely different gameplay. Bomb tag is what you'd expect. A car gets lumbered with a bomb, and they have to tag someone to get rid of it. Run out of time, and you blow up and are out of the race. The last car not destroyed is the winner. Simple, but so much fun. And Capture the Flag gives you a team of AI racers to run around the arenas and capture your opponent's flag and bring it back to your base. You spot an opponent with a flag, you simply bump into them and they lose that flag. This game provides a little bit more strategy and really a lot of fun, especially with 4 players. However, I would say that it could go on for a bit. Sometimes you just want a quick round, but it's split up into 3 different rounds and there are no options available to change that. And that's it. That's Destruction Derby 64. Okay, so you beat Championship mode and you beat a few time trial times, and you'll unlock a few novelty cars and a few new tracks, but really it's nothing for the game to brag about. The single player is bare bones that's really just unengaging. The appeal of this game is the multiplayer Destruction Derby action. So all in all, what can I advise you about this game? Put it this way. If you own a Nintendo 64, have 3 extra controllers, and have mates just as auto-maniacal as you, then you've got to own this game. It's an essential party piece like GoldenEye or Conker's Bad Fur Day. However, if you don't have any of those things, then believe me, you've experienced the best of DD64 by watching this video, and you should stay the hell away from it. It's a shame really, because all it needs is a few tweaks here and there, and this game could have been incredible. I mean, if it weren't for the fact that, you know, this was released so long after the original Destruction Derby from the PS1, I would have said just port that. That probably would have fit on the cartridge and run incredible. But Nintendo can't be seen to be porting old games onto its brand new system now, I suppose, could it? Oh wait, how much money did the Virtual Console make it? And those mini consoles as well? That doesn't matter, that's besides the point. So ladies and gentlemen, I have been Timmus TSET, this has been the Crash TSET. We've been looking at Destruction Derby 64. Please buckle up, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next ride.